Everyone, Ryan the Vintage Viking, and I am back, and I have my monthly wrap-up for the month of August. I know I'm a couple days late, but it's a long weekend this weekend, and I had some time to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and go through these, give you a short little synopsis or take on each one, and let's get to it. All right, well, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys, and if you haven't hit that subscribe button or that like button, please do it now. We are so close to 500 subscribers, and that's kind of a big milestone, so looking to get there pretty soon, and hope you guys can help me do it. So let's start off with the one I DNF'd so far. So I started the Foundation trilogy by Isaac Asimov, and it was just not the right time for me to read this. Sometimes you know that it's a good time to read something or not a good time to read something. Like, for example, I was just mentioning to Cliff over at Cliff Stark Gems on one of his comments, like The Road by Cormac Mccarthy. That book is one that you kind of need to be in the mood for. It's not one that you can just pick up and breeze through and when you're kind of in a lighthearted mood. It's just kind of got to be in the right space for it. So I started this and I knew I wasn't in the right space for it. So I will revisit this one at some point. So I'm DNFing it, but only for a temporary period of time. It was too courtroom drama-y for me, is what I felt like. I just and that's I'm not really always in the mood for that. So or political, maybe that's the right word, not courtroom drama, but like just a political back and forth of stuff, and it just wasn't the right time for me. So I read also this month To the Vanishing Point by Alan Dean Foster. I think this is the fourth Alan Dean Foster that I've read. I've read The Dig, Alien, and it's right there. I read it like 2 months ago. And I read Midworld. So this is the fourth one of those. It was not my favorite of those four, but it was still darn good. And actually, out of all of them, they're all good. Alien kind of stands alone by itself because it's you can't compare it with anything else. It's Alien, and it was just so good. But the other three are very similar in the same vein of how he writes, I guess. And they were all pretty darn good, and they were all decent, easy reads. They were all enjoyable. But this one was unique in a way that I was not expecting. And I don't really want to say anything because it'll spoil it. If you know nothing about it going in, it's worth the read. And if you like anything else by Alan Dean Foster, you're going to like this. So, To the Vanishing Point. As normal, I'm trying to read at least one or two Stephen Kings a month. My favorite author. I love Stephen King. I just want to read everything he's ever written. So I'm trying to purposely work through ones I haven't read yet. And there's a lot of the big ones that I haven't read yet, just because I don't know, kind of avoid, like I haven't read The Stand yet, and I've been avoiding it for a really, really, really long time. I don't know why. Probably because I don't want to read it and have it be over. I know that's weird to say, but I do that a lot with like TV shows that I love, and I know they've ended, and I'll go up to like the last season and I won't finish the last season. It's so dumb, but I do it all the time. I don't know why. And it's just something like I don't want it to be over. I don't know. I haven't done that with some of his big books, so I've been purposely going through those. And so Cujo was one of those that I was expecting, have this nostalgia in my head from the movie back in the day, and I'm just expecting to go through it and devour it and then have it be over. And I was very sad when that happened, but it was really, really good. It was not as good or up there with it. It was different. Cujo was a little faster paced, I'd say, and a little more crammed together. Like, I just read it the month before, and then I read this, so like it was very elaborate and long, and not drawn out to where it was unenjoyable, but just it had all the detail. And Cujo really was compact and a little more succinct, I think. Very, very good book. You have the super photo on the back. I believe this is a first edition. It does have some dust jacket issues. I don't remember. Oh no, it's a book club. Sorry. And but it was. I loved it. It's very the movie is very similar from what I remember, and worth reading. It's not my numero uno book by Stephen King, but it's one of the greats, and it's up there. So. Not everything he does is like absolutely the best writing ever, but his writing is just, there's something about his writing that you even just start a story and you're already in it. You're like immediately pulled into the story. He's an extremely talented writer. I don't care what anybody says, he's an extremely talented writer. All right, so the beginning of the month, I read Books of Blood. This is volume 1 of Clive Barker's kind of short story collection series. This is the first one. I think there's 4, if I remember correctly. 5 maybe. I don't know. I have them somewhere. This one started off so strong. The first story in here is, oops, sorry, not that one. I pointed the wrong one. Midnight Meat Train. And if you remember, a while ago there was a movie made by that with I think it was Vinnie Jones and Bradley Cooper. And I never actually saw the movie, so this makes me want to go watch the movie. And I'm not sure, they had to have taken some liberties with the movie, I would guess, just based on the length of the story and how much was in there. But that short story was really good and quite a trip. The rest of it was kind of mediocre to me. The last story was okay, a little better than the other ones. But definitely Midnight Meat Train. It started off strong, and I was like, dang, this freaking book is going to be good. And then it kind of dwindled down after Midnight Meat Train. So I will definitely read the other ones because, a lot of times with short story collections, you get 1 or 2 really good ones in there, and the rest are kind of eh. So rarely do you find a short story collection that has they're just all good. So I finally read War of the Worlds by H.g Wells. And it was good. It was just okay, though. It wasn't great. I can see how influential it was, how important it was, how, this is an absolute classic. It was just pretty slow, to be honest. And maybe it's because I've seen so much having to do with War of the Worlds in the past. I don't know. But it was just a little bit slow for me. It was not a hard read, so it was fairly quick read, but it was just kind of mediocre to me. Anyways, sorry, I don't want to offend everybody on the planet. So I also read A Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. This one is my favorite cover. I have another one. I think it's on the next, the Whatnot show that's coming out next week. It's available, I believe, if I remember correctly. They're all sitting right there behind me. And Day of the Triffids was really enjoyable. It was I can see why it's a classic, is one of the great science fiction books of all time. When you do a search on maybe like top 20, 25 books classic science fiction books that you should read, this one usually pops up. It was very well paced. I enjoyed going through it. It wasn't boring. There were some really unique things that happened in this book. The design of the plants. If you don't know, these Triffid things take over, basically start taking over the space in the world. Excuse me. So many reminiscent things of like Walking Dead in here to me, because of just being isolated and having to deal with the human element as well as this other element that's not that there were zombies. I'm just the idea of having to deal with, you know, people as a threat as well as this other thing that's a threat, and the back and forth of who can you trust, who can you not trust, how do you deal with this, well, how do you trust this to deal with while you're dealing with this, and just that back and forth. So I could see how maybe this was an inspiration or drawn some of the ideas were drawn from, you know, books like this. So Day of the Triffids, very good, worth reading. I also read, my wife and I took my son down to college this like a week ago. He's down in LA now, and that was very hard for us. That's my second son that has gone to college. My first son went all the way to Hungary when he went to college when he was 17. And so, you know, that was extremely difficult to send him on a plane, and there was, you know, we weren't close, we weren't near him, we were nothing. But you know, at least we have a little bit of comfort that he's 8 hours away. We could drive there if we need to my middle son. And so we took him down there last weekend, and we drove down there. So my wife wanted to listen to the Left Behind series because she's read these before and she loved them. And so, and I had never read them yet. And so we listened to the first one on the trip, and it was the audiobook, and it was a terrible audiobook recording. It was really hard to hear sometimes. So we had it like cranked up super loud, and we're both like straining sometimes. The guy would get like really quiet, and then he would get really loud, and then he'd get really quiet, and then he would get really loud. And so we're constantly tweaking the volume. But if you don't know, Left Behind has to do with the rapture of the church in Revelation, and from the Bible. And there is this is really, so also, if you don't know, I have a background in theology, so I study theology, and I know theology means theos, ology, study of God. So I have a background in that stuff, and I also know a lot about eschatology, which is the study of the end times. And so this is a book written about the end times. And so this is the start of it, though. This is basically the beginning of that and the first, you know, like portion of the tribulation period. So as these books progress, I think they're up. Oh yeah, right there. There's I think there's like 10 books or 12 books or something. So it's all going like one little year or two at a time kind of thing. So as what I understand. It was a very enjoyable book. If you have no background in any of that stuff and you're wanting to learn a little bit, it's fairly accurate. There's some things where I'm like, that's kind of off, but not much. It's fairly accurate, so it's worth a read if you are into that. So that one's there. All right, I also read, finally, I've been wanting to read this for a while. I also read Sea of Rust by Robert Cargill. And this I heard from Jonathon at Words in Time. And I heard several times him mention it, talk about what an amazing book this was. And so I picked it up a while ago, and I think I ordered it on eBay. And then the next day I went to like a library sale, and they had it there hardcover, like for $1. I was like, oh man. So which always happens. But I picked this one up. It is really, really enjoyable, and I was so thankful that this had been recommended to me, because it was just a phenomenal book. It was the idea is that all humans have been wiped out by robots, and robots have taken over the earth. That's kind of the very first chapter, so not a spoiler. The robots, then there are different types, and like some are like caregivers, and they were programmed to take care of people, and some are like pleasure bots. They're made to serve people pleasurably pleasurably, however you say that word. Then there's like military ones, and there's all different types that were made, and they've survived, and they're kind of like the main characters, like scrapping around parts from other old bots to like stay afloat and buy the parts that she needs to stay alive and all this kind of stuff. So anyways, it's a really, 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 really good book, and I was so thankful that this was recommended, because I highly enjoyed it and just devoured it so quickly. It is very good. Highly, highly recommend. If you didn't like, I'm gonna do a video on kind of overhyped, overrated books, in my opinion, and compare them to books that I think are better, coming up here shortly. But I'll give you this for now. If you think that the Murderbot series, or you didn't like the Murderbot series, or you feel like it's overhyped a little bit, and you read it and you weren't that impressed, then I would recommend Sea of Rust, because this one I felt was better than the Murderbot series. So I think that's worth reading. I also read, finally, and I'm so happy because this was so stinking good, The Martian. I loved this book. I thought it was amazing. I had seen the movie. So the movie was, phenomenal, with Matt Damon, and is pretty darn accurate. But his writing, I didn't realize, was a lot like John Scalzi. And I absolutely love John Scalzi. So as soon as I got like a couple pages in, I was like, yes, this is going to be so good. It's kind of witty and snippy and sarcastic, and, just fun. Just really fun to read. And it's just well written and a good book. If you're a math nerd, you're going to love this. So I'm going to try and talk my son into reading that one someday, because he's a math nerd also. So I also read, finally, The Mote in God's Eye. About time, right? And this one was quite enjoyable also. This is the second Larry Niven book I've read. I read The Protector a while ago, and The Protector was just okay. It wasn't great. It was mediocre, and it just kind of like plodded along. I don't know. And this one was really, really enjoyable. It starts off really strong. It's very interesting to learn. It's a first contact with this alien species, and you learn about them, and it's all taking place in space to begin with, and then there's just some other neat things that happen that kind of change the dynamic of the book a little bit, and it kind of like keeps shifting slightly at times, which makes it interesting to keep going. I think in the middle it kind of did that plodding along thing that Larry Niven seems to do, and then came back up. So I know Niven and Purnell wrote this together. I don't quite know how that works, honestly. Like, do you like write one chapter and then hand it to the next guy and he writes the next chapter? Is it like one of those things? I don't know. Or does one person write, or they talk about it and then they write? I don't know. I've never actually researched that and found out. But anyways, it'd be interesting to read a book knowing who wrote what parts and see how different it is. That'd be kind of cool. So, Mote in God's Eye. And there is a sequel called The Gripping Hand. And it's very interesting. This is a pretty darn good description of a Modi right there, which is what they're called, and it's kind of fun to read, Modi. So this one I also read earlier on in the month because I had started it the month before, and it was one of those ones that kind of overlaps into the next month. I have oftentimes 4 or 5 books I'm reading at once, that just depending on how I feel, I pick one, whichever one I want up. Or I have certain ones that I kind of have like for nighttime, and certain ones I have that I carry with me and things like that. But anyways, this one I started last month, and so it rolled over, like I finished it like the very first day of August, somewhere right around there. And it is P. Jelly Clark. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but Ring Shout. And I think I heard about this one from Criminali originally, and I'm pretty sure. And it's a very interesting story. It's a story of hunting the Ku Klux Klan in the end times, it says, or hunting the Ku Klux Klan in the end times. So the idea is that there's these. It's kind of an old timey feel to it. There's Ku Klux Klan members that are not who they seem to be. They're different, and I don't want to get too much into it because it is kind of an interesting take. And so there's a band of people who are fighting against certain things. So it is kind of a supernatural type story in a way. So you'll it's interesting. There's some good gruesomeness to it, and there's some highly enjoyable moments to it. But I don't want to give too much away. It's worth the read though. So it's worth the read. Okay, I also read John Scalzi's Lock-In, and I wanted to start a new Scalzi series that I hadn't started yet, because I'm also going through Old Man's War series, and I just read 4 of them, I think, so far. So I was like, I'm going to try this Lock-In one, because I heard it was good. This one's very, very interesting. And when did this come out? I'm curious. Hold on. Okay, 2014. Okay, this is almost like eerily similar to COVID in some ways, because the whole idea is that this highly contagious virus goes around, and it goes around the globe. People are getting infected. They're miserable, and it's not just affecting everyone. It's not just affecting certain regions. It's like the whole world, and certain people are more affected by it than others. And part of what happens is they get this Hayden syndrome, and basically the body shuts off, like they can't move or do anything, but they're fully alive inside. Reminds me of there was like a Jessica Alba movie back in the day where she was like supposed to be undergoing surgery, and she was supposed to be asleep but didn't get anesthetized. She actually was awake while everything was happening. She could feel everything, and it was a trip. Anyways, sorry, rabbit trail. It was like that, where they're like fully alive, and they can completely function inside of their brains, but their body can't do anything. The body's just completely like comatose. And so that then there's this device that basically lets them control another body. There's more details than that. That's a general idea, but it's really good. Kind of more storyline of like kind of a figure it out whodunit type of thing, but it's really, really good. It's the same John Scalzi type style, and there's, I think, 3 parts to this series. I think the next one's called Head On or something, or I forget. Anyways, but it's really, really good. It's a good start to the series. I'm looking forward to reading the rest, and it's pretty much a win for Scalzi again. Has he written anything that's bad? I don't know. I heard Red Shirts was terrible. That's the only one I've heard was terrible from Scalzi, but I've also heard other people loved it. So maybe just some people just don't like his style. Maybe some people don't like sarcasm. Maybe some people don't have a sense of humor. I don't know. Just kidding. If you don't have a sense of humor, calm down. Okay. All right. And finally, the pièce de la résistance. I'm not sure that's how you say it, but Bad Brains, Kathy Koja. This Del Abyss, right? Yeah, Del Abyss horror right there. Just a moment of silence for my thinking. Okay, this was actually really, really, really good. If you're expecting it to be like the Cipher, you'll have a hard time until you get past that kind of thing. Because that's kind of what I was I wasn't expecting it to be the same book as the Cipher, but the same just weirdness as the Cipher, for lack of a better phrase. I was expecting it to be similar to Cipher in the sense that there was going to be this, like, I don't know, this mysterious, unique thing that was happening. And yes, there kind of was, but it was slowly drawn out compared to Cipher. Cipher was a little more, here it is, and in Bad Brains, it's a little more like elongated. This one bogged down a little bit in the middle for me. So I had read it. I think I read like four or 5 chapters, and the chapters are really long. As you're reading it, sometimes you like, okay, I'll just get to the end of the chapter and then I'll go to bed or whatever. They're really long. They're like 50 pages long or something like that. So when you're reading it, sometimes you're tired after like page 30 and you're like, okay, I'm ready for bed. I don't know, it takes you a little while to get through a chapter, is my point. So I think I read 4 chapters or so, somewhere in there, and then I kind of got sidetracked from it for a long time. I actually set it down probably for like 2 months and didn't even go back to it really. And I don't know why. It was like under a stack of books off in the corner. I know it was there, and I know I had to read it, but I just like didn't want to. I knew I didn't want to DNF it, but I just didn't want to finish it yet. And then so I picked it up and I read I read a chapter and I was like, yeah, still, and I put it back down. And then I read like another chapter, probably sometime in those 2 months, and I was like, eh. And then I was like, okay, I gotta finish this because it's been sitting there forever, and whether I like it or not, it is interesting. It's just a little slow in the middle. So I picked it up and I got through chapter 6, and then probably around 7 or 8, it all of a sudden just went and took off again. And so I don't know if it was just me. It was very, very, those 2 months were very, very busy. So I probably was just so tired I couldn't do it. It was too heady for me to wrap my brain around when I'm laying in bed getting ready to sleep. And so it just then took off, and it just went just sent it, bud. Just went for it. And it got very enjoyable, more interesting. The pace kind of picked up, I think, and then that was it. It was good. It was just totally worth reading. I would absolutely love to see this turned into a movie. That's kind of what I was thinking like the whole time. I want to see this. I want I would love to have Kathy Koja be a whatever, you know, the person that kind of is behind the scenes saying, yes, that's good, don't do that, do that. Why can't I use my brain? Why is my brain bad brains today? Why can't I think? The person that is not an influencer, they're a person who is there to make sure it gets portrayed the way it's supposed to. I can't think of it. Whatever. Anyways, they're that person. I'd like to see a movie where she's the person that's kind of like behind the scenes saying, yeah, hey, do it this way, don't do that. No, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. No, and actually kind of like directing the the correctness of the movie. There's a term for it, and I cannot. It is just gone from my head, and sometimes my brain just does that. It just deletes. It's like, oh, you want to think of it right now? No, and it's just gone. So anyways, that's all I read in August. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them. Some of those were pretty chunky. But I know I'm close to at least 100 books this year. I lost count somewhere along the way, and I haven't got them all out and like pulled them out to check. So it's going to be a surprise at the end of the year. I got to be close to 100. And my goal was to hit 100, and then I kind of like added some more books, and so I went up to maybe 150 or so. So we're hoping to get close to that by the end of the year. When it gets to the end of the year, I'll do maybe a couple part video on everything that I read through the year, going back through, rating them, maybe putting them in order if I can remember that far back. So that was August. Appreciate you guys being here. I really am thankful for all of you, and this is fun. Please let me know if there's any other ones you would like me to add to my list. If you think I should read them, if based on what I've read here, maybe you're like, oh dude, you gotta read this or whatever. All right, I'll see you later.